video I was originally gonna film, I actually had a different one that was like way longer, but it was taking way too long to edit, and I need something for tomorrow, and I can talk a lot more about this, just because this is like a topic that I think about a lot, and I definitely know how to articulate, and that is why I love Sailor Moon, and not just like the show Sailor Moon, but Usagi Tsukino herself, Sailor Moon. You know, a lot of people look at Sailor Moon and they're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this essentially, this superhero is so immature. She makes terrible grades. She can't prioritize anything, and she's a huge crybaby. You often might even find her annoying. I know a lot of people say Usagi is very, very annoying, especially in the 90s show. But I've always loved Usagi, and I love her because I can relate to her. And I'm gonna explain what that means. Let's start off with the immaturity thing, and specifically talking about school and grades. Growing up, I was always expected to make straight A's. That was an expectation my parents set for both me and my brother. We had high expectations placed on us. I had learning disabilities that no one really knew about, and so when I had trouble reading, doing math, spelling, you know, it was hard on me. I wasn't able to catch on as quick as other people, and sometimes I was treated like I was just lazy. And I ended up fine. I really didn't end up behind it all, but it was still a hard feeling, and especially when you get to the point where I simply couldn't make an A in a class. I couldn't do long division until I was in the 6th grade. You learn that skill in the 3rd, meaning that when I was in the 5th grade and we had an entire unit that relied on us using long division, I didn't do very well in it, and that resulted in me getting a B in math. And I felt like that was the biggest moral failing. I felt like I had disappointed my parents. I felt like I was a failure. I felt like I was lazy, and my parents made me feel that way to an extent too. I don't think that was their goal, but I felt that way. And it's really hard still for me to understand that there will be times where I am doing my best and a B is my best. That hasn't come often because I work really, really hard, but it has. It's happened. And usually it's because of something related to my dyslexia or my dyscalculia. And so when I see Usagi's parents yelling at her for getting a 30, or I see her sad because she's not making good grades, even though it's not because she's trying and she can't. Like, she's objectively just lazy. I still see myself in that because she's still upset about it. Her feelings are hurt. She feels bad for disappointing her family. And I can relate to that feeling. Now I want to talk a little bit about something more specific, and that is Sailor Moon's emotions. Now, Sailor Moon feels everything in extremes, and that's very obvious when you watch the show. She cries over every little dig, anything that could possibly be negative. And she has massive levels of empathy, even for people who have harmed the people she cares about. And that's something I can relate to. I've always been someone that felt everything in extremes. I've always been someone that if, you know, there's even a small amount of frustration or anger in your voice or your face when you're saying something to me, that's what I'm going to detect. And I'm going to be wondering what could possibly making you any less than happy to be around me. And so when I see her crying in ways that most people would say are, you know, crybaby-ish and are whiny, I can feel what she's feeling. I was always told as a kid that I was too sensitive, that my strong emotions and my sensitivity were a vice and not a virtue, that they were gonna hold me back. And oftentimes people have trouble comprehending how I can be so empathetic to people, even when they've done bad things. People have a hard time comprehending why I'm so understanding and why I don't really wish ill on others, even though I can objectively call out their bad behavior. And that is because I genuinely believe that everyone is inherently good, and I love every human being I interact with, and so does Usagi. It validates that I'm not crazy, that this is an okay way to live my life and an okay way to feel. And lastly, I want to talk about strength. Usagi is objectively the weakest member of the group when we're talking life skills, when we're talking emotions, but her attacks and her powers are the strongest. She's the only one that can use the silver crystal, except like Chibiusa, but Chibiusa's way too young, and Usagi just has a better handle on how to use the silver crystal. And the silver crystal is a big part of what makes her attack so strong. She also uses it to save the world from an ice age. And to be fair, when it comes to her dealing killing blows, especially in season 5, to Galaxia and saving Galaxia, she is protected by the 5 inner senshi, or the 4 other inner senshi, and the Sailor Starlights and the Outers. But she is still objectively the strongest in terms of her powers and her attack. And that strength might sound weird, because a lot of the other inner strength comes from their character traits. Mercury's strength comes from her intelligence. Venus's strength comes from her leadership and dedication to her job as a Sailor Guardian, especially as the leader of the Sailor Guardians. Mars's strength comes from her independence and intuition, and Jupiter's strength comes from her brute athleticism and will. But Usagi doesn't have any of that. She's not smart, she's not very independent, she's a terrible leader, she is not athletic, she has pretty terrible intuition, at least when we're comparing her to the other Guardians. So what does she have? And she even expresses insecurity about this at one point in season 1 of Crystal. She's talking to Tuxedo Mask. She says she can't summon fire or water. She can't summon lightning. She can't do the things the other characters can do. All she can do at this point is throw the tiara. And he grabs her and he hugs her and he tells her that her strength is in her ability to heal. Usagi's strength comes from her heart. It comes from those strong emotions, from her being a crybaby, from her being able to be so empathetic to these terrible people. Her strength lies in what everyone is treating as a weakness. Her strength lies in what I believed was a weakness. And at the end of the day, I think my biggest strength is how sensitive I am, is how empathetic I am to others. I mean, I'm gonna be a social worker. You can't really not be empathetic and be a social worker. And most of the social workers I meet are quite sensitive individuals, or at least were sensitive as kids. That sensitivity, that strong, being in touch with your emotions helps you be more empathetic to the people around you. She sees the good in everyone, including her villains. And I try to see the good in everyone, including those who've hurt me. So that's why I love Usagi Tsukina, because she takes something that is considered such a vice, being sensitive, being so strongly in touch with your emotions, feeling everything in extremes, and she uses it to her advantage. It is what gives her her power. It's what makes her who she is. And she is the strongest of the 5 inner senshi. And I think that gives people like me, especially kids like me, the inner strength to know that these aren't inherently bad flaws, that it's okay to be sensitive, it's okay to feel, and it's okay to be a crybaby sometimes. All right, that's all I have to say. Does anyone else agree with me, or am I just crazy? I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay smart, work hard. Bye.